Hello, Dan Alasso here, making history, and I am in my office on campus, beginning to get ready for the fall semester. And as part of that, I'm thinking about the research and writing projects that I have ahead of me in the fall and winter. And as I'm preparing my notes and writing notes to myself in Obsidian, I'm also thinking about my Obsidian Graph. Now, I got out of the habit of looking at my Obsidian Graph a while ago. There was a period when I wasn't using Obsidian quite as much because I was a bit unhappy that it wasn't easier to follow the links between data or ideas in the main graph. And it wasn't that clear to me how I was going to get output out of this system. And I think really, to a great extent, that was my fault. I think that the main graph isn't really designed to do that, and the solution to that problem is probably on the right-hand sidebar. But that I need to refresh myself on how to use all of these features. I remember some of them, and I remember doing some things that as I go look there now, I'm not exactly sure how to do, and I'm not sure if that is changes between the old versions that I used to use and the new one that's available now, or just that these features are someplace else and I haven't found them yet and I haven't remembered how to do it. So I am going to refresh myself on how to do all of this stuff. In the meantime, I have taken a look once again at the total graph. And I've been thinking about this more than as just a kind of a way to brag about the amount of info that I've put into the system. And I've been thinking about maybe how it actually helps me in other ways, in addition to helping motivate me, because it is a serious motivation to me to see all the things in there and to see how they connect. One of the things that I've noticed after taking some time away from Obsidian is that the time lapse is kind of interesting. It begins with a fairly linear record of me inputting information and linking it in Obsidian. The network or the web of connections between these ideas and pieces of information build fairly steadily, and over time some groupings begin to appear. Many of the early ideas that I put in were surrounded by tiny clouds of empty nodes because I was in the habit of highlighting concepts as I was writing little essays about a general idea. I would highlight concepts or names that I wanted to come back to. So I would double bracket them, and that would create a node, but then I wouldn't go there immediately and fill those things in. The idea being that I would go back and fill those things in over time. And one of the things that I've seen is in the later stages of watching this graph, there are a bunch of these little empty nodes that do actually change from purple to yellow. Sometimes they change to other colors too, where I've brought them directly into a network of new information that I'm pursuing, like my Secular Radicals project or my Gilded Age project. And so sometimes I'll see these little nodes get grabbed by another connection and be pulled across the screen to someplace else where they find their place in a new batch of information that I'm working on. Now, the first colored collection that I made while I was building this collection is the red batch of Secular Radicals. And I should mention that this is not my entire vault. This is a vault that I have made called Notes Summer 2023, which includes things that I am working on and excludes some things that I no longer want to have kind of in the foreground. And some of the things that I exclude are the automated sweeps into Obsidian from Readwise and things like that, because I want to be more deliberate and methodical about how I enter that information. I still have that information available, but it's not showing up here. So in any case, the first colored collection that I make in this particular timeline is this red batch of Secular Radicals. Then there's a cluster of yellow primary sources that all surround a node that's called primary sources, and then a green flower of the sources that I added into my anthology. And the petals in this flower represent the chapters in the ebook that I made. And finally, there is a pretty recent set of orange entries that are the beginning of my network of Gilded Age data, where I'm going to try to connect the first Gilded Age and the first kind of plutocracy of the early 20th century, the robber barons, with the current situation a century later and what's going on now, and who is in this current network, and whether and in what ways they might possibly connect to the people who were in the earlier network. One thing that I notice about these entries is that there are far fewer little clouds of empty nodes around ideas that I'm putting in. Mostly what I'm doing in this is I'm writing little biographical entries on characters who I want to pursue, and then I am connecting them with other people with whom they were associated in life. And I notice there are a lot of little orange nodes in the cloud of individual notes surrounding the web in the center. Those little outside unconnected nodes. And there are a lot of little orange ones suggesting that there are a lot of entries that I've made where there are still connections that I need to go back and make. So this fall, I'll be pursuing this. I'll be adding new nodes and I'll be connecting more of them together. I will also be trying to learn or relearn how to use the note level features, many of which are on the right-hand sidebar still. And the result of this, I expect, will probably be a gradual expansion of the connectedness of these individual webs of the projects that I'm working on with the data that they contain, and also hopefully some interesting connections that I'll be able to notice between this info and ideas in other spaces on the graph. It'll be interesting to see, for example, if there are some elements of my current research into the Gilded Age that connect more with other topics that I've been pursuing in the past, or with kind of general history. Are there ideas or are there people that connect more obviously to the mainstream or to the well-known stories of history in a way that will help me bring an audience into the stories that I want to describe by stages? Take them from, for example, the familiar to the unfamiliar. Is there a way to complicate things that people think they already know and open some doors that encourage them to consider a different point of view or a different explanation? And I'm hoping that the graph will help me explore some of these potential ways of doing this, some of these potential ways of telling stories, and give me some insights that I wouldn't have otherwise. And I will let you know how that goes as the project progresses. But in the meantime, I hope you found that a little bit interesting. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you again very soon.